Welcome to this week's project. It's a chip and dip bowl with a bit of a difference. If you're a fan of the old VW campervan, you should love this. The bowl is being modelled on this old wheel. To create this bowl, I'm going to use these two Acacia chopping boards purchased at the local supermarket. They have got lovely grain structure and will look great on the finished item. To start the project off, the boards were cut into circles on the CNC to give the basic wheel shape. The CNC is such a wonderful tool to have in your workshop. It's just so accurate and never lets you down. The blanks were then glued together in preparation for the turning process. I clamped the two boards together and left them to the next day. A tenon with a centre metal dowel was put in place with hot glue. With a project like this, where the piece is going to be removed from the lathe on a number of occasions, it is very important that object is able to be refitted to the lathe at the same centre point, otherwise you will not be able to turn a smooth surface and the outcome will be a failure. Once on the lathe, the first thing is some initial truing up, then I go on to start forming the shape of the tyre. I love it, watching the wood chips build up as the shape that I'm trying to make unfolds. A small bit of marking up to let me know where I'm going. That's enough for this side. I'll just slip over to the other and give that a go. After giving it some shape, the next stage was to remove the whole of the top side of the tyre. I made a parting tool out of a small thin file, in an attempt to remove the top side of the tyre, but because it is so thin, only a shallow cut of about half an inch could be made, so some quick thinking was required, and this thin bladed saw was the answer. Well, that turned out very well, considering the trouble it appeared I was in. I'm now going to create the outer bowl from within the tyre. All the turning, from this point onwards, is running at 5 times normal speed. To make the top of the tyre fit snugly with what would in reality be a metal wheel, I will use some epoxy resin to fill the space, then turn it down to the required diameter to give the appearance of a real tyre on a wheel. The inside of the tyre needs to be turned to shape after being cut by the saw. I've been able to use the cold jaws as the hole in the middle of the tyre was cut when the whole thing was at the initial centre on the lathe. The inside is being turned to provide a concave surface. There's been a fair amount of end grain chip out, so I'm applying some sanding sealer in preparation for finishing. I like to take my projects to a high gloss finish, which I've found several coats of automotive lacquer to be the answer. It's a couple of days later now and the resin is set. I'll get the mould removed and try to create a snug finish between the wheel and tyre. The resin is turning really well, with no chip out. I find chip out seems to occur when the resin surface is uneven and not at its full hardness. This must be just right. That looks about right. Let's try it. The outside diameter is not quite right. The wood must have changed shape a little over the last few days and needs some truing up. Hot glue should be ideal for ensuring the tyre is held in position for truing up. It's here where the tyre has gone out of shape a little. That small amount of turning has done a good job at realigning everything. The next thing on the agenda is the hubcap. I made up a circular blank from what was left of the boards to go with the smaller blank removed by the CNC at the start. This was needed because the hubcap design is quite a high dome shape. The blanks were joined together with super glue and centered up with the tailstock. The blank will require a tenon on both sides, so a centre hole is being drilled. The outside and then inside require turning to shape. The tenons are the same type as used on the back of the main piece. When it's time to remove a tenon, I heat it to soften the glue and then prise it off with a scraper. Wow, that's hot. I'll have to be more careful. Right, that's the outside done. The tip will stay flat as that's where the VW logo will be placed. Refit the tenon so the inside can be turned. Okay, that's nearly it for the hubcap on the lathe, just sanding and clean up required. Onto the bottom of the bowl. As it wasn't on display, I just smoothed it out and left it for finishing. Okay, it was time to start shaping the wheel, which was a whole new ballgame. I had to just follow my instinct as the shape of the wheel began to form. The wheel holes were causing me the most pain, but that part came to me in the end with what I think was a satisfactory result. I got to a point where I thought it was time to turn out the centre of the bowl. This turned out to be easy, with no problems. It was time for the tyre tread. A stencil was 3D printed and transferred to the wheel. It was then cut out with a small circular saw and a 2mm end mill from the CNC, with the vertical lines being done with a parting tool. While thinking of how I was going to overcome this latest problem, I wasn't at all confident of how good I could make the finish look, but when it boiled down to it, it was quite a smooth operation, and the finish I think looks great. I used this small circular saw to cut all horizontal straight lines. A parting tool for the vertical ones. It was always my intention to spray paint the wheel a cream colour, but this white was to show up any defects in the wheel surface so that I could repair them. It was very important to have a really smooth surface for me to apply the cream finishing coat. Now that I had a blemish-free surface, I applied a few coats of antique cream finish. Because of the angle, it wasn't possible to drill holes in the wheel, so I found these black round stickers for effect, which after all look quite convincing. I tried numerous paints that claimed to be chrome, but in the end this was the best of a bad bunch. I cut out the VW logo on the CNC from 1mm thick perspex and then painted it silver. All that was now left, other than 6 coats of lacquer, was to cut out a place for my maker's logo. And here it is, looking rather dandy. What more could you want from a couple of chopping boards? Please consider subscribing, pressing the notification bell and sharing the video. Thank you.